Okay, it's gone 11 o'clock, so I think we're about ready to get started. Thank you very much for coming along or watching the recording to this webinar on the fundamentals of information architecture in SharePoint. And I'll start off with a brief bit of introduction before we go through, but before I do, this session is being recorded and will be shared with everybody afterwards. Also, if you have any questions along the way, there is a Q&A section within the meeting that you're in, so you should be able to click in there and ask any questions throughout the session. And that'll be monitored throughout, but I'll have a dedicated section at the end of this to run through any of those questions and hopefully be able to answer them. So to begin with, I am Alex Franklin. I'm a senior consultant with CLO Costa. I'll be running you through all of the slides and the demonstrations today, talking through the topics we're covering. I'm a senior consultant with CLO Costa, as I mentioned. I've got 14 years of experience working with SharePoint and over 20 years of working generally within the area of solution design and architecture. My specialist areas that I work in mostly are within change, knowledge, information, and intranet design. And a lot of this really does cover what we're going to be talking about today. And CLO Costa, we are a company that have been around for a few years now. We're still relatively young, but we work in partnership with companies to help solve their business problems, delivering enterprise technology solutions to change the way their businesses work, but make them more efficient, make them more productive, help them with compliance, whatever it may be. And we build very strong relationships with our customers. And we do genuinely care about what we do. We have an excellent success rate in our projects and we have an excellent retention rate with our clients. We have a lot of longer term relationships with our customers, working with them within their business to help make change and help improve things, bringing in new technology and new solutions. We've been around since 2016 when we started as a SharePoint consultancy, and then started to branch out further shortly afterwards, working in Microsoft 365 as a whole, over the Power Platform, Microsoft Azure, and in the last year as well, working more within Dynamics 365 as well. We're a completely remote-based business. We're across the world. We have staff all over the place working with us in various different roles in the organization across the projects that we have. And so because of this, when we do a lot of work with customers, guiding them on, for example, things like Microsoft Teams and remote working, we are truly practicing what we preach because we work it ourselves and we believe in it. We cover a lot of industries with the customers that we work with. We don't specifically go for one industry, we work in many. And in this example here from the slide with our customer logos, or some examples of our customer logos, you can see that we cover a lot of different types of company in a lot of different industries in a lot of different locations as well, whether they're based in the UK or whether they're based globally. And so moving on to what we're talking about today. This session today, as you saw from the title, is the fundamentals of information architecture. Now, this is a topic that we could probably talk about for days, and I've got about 45 minutes to talk you through these parts associated with it. And so what we're going to be covering are the 5 steps that introduce you to the concepts and the key features available that help you through this journey to getting that information architecture sound. And it's something that is absolutely key. This platform isn't something you can just switch on and let loose to the masses. You need to be able to organize and guide and, to a certain extent, control, so that you can keep a tidy house and keep things working as best as they possibly can going forward for various reasons, from user adoption for ease of use through to compliance and retention and everything associated. And so in this session, we're going to start by talking about the organization of the sites that you build in SharePoint with a focus on hub sites, how we then manage the navigation to get around those sites and get around within the sites that we're in, managing the content within them, showing you the new content type galleries so that you can effectively manage your documents, how we then tag those documents using taxonomy and metadata, and some of the principles that you should follow when you're doing that. And then finally, once we've got all that in place, we start to talk about search and how you can get the best out of search within this environment, both for you and your end users. And then at the end, we'll cover any questions and answers or questions that have come along the way. So we start with organizing your sites with a focus here on hub sites. Historically, going back to the SharePoint Classic, as it's called, we would have built things out using site structures. We would have perhaps a home site, and then underneath that site, we have subsites, and it builds a structure like this, where we have finance home, and then we have accounts payable, investor relations, whatever it may be, and it builds this big tree. And it all worked well enough, but it wasn't without its problems. The main problem I've always had in the many years I've been working with SharePoint is in cases where, for example, you have a company restructure and we have information technology down the bottom here underneath operations. What happens if we have a restructure and IT moves under finance? Because this site is physically located within that structure, it means it's very difficult to move it. You have to do a migration, you've got to move the site or rebuild the site and then migrate the content, and it can be problematic. And that's where hub sites come in. So hub sites have been around for a little while now, and what they do is they allow for better organization. Rather than organizing a site by its physical location, it organizes it by association. So you associate a site with its hub now, because in SharePoint, in the modern experience, when you create new sites, they're created in a flat structure. And so you can take that structure and associate those sites, and that builds out the relationships and it builds out the structure for you that way. And it makes it far easier for reorganization, for search, for delivery, whatever it may be. And with that reorganization, it's something that historically would have taken hours, or in some larger scale operations, if not days. But now we can, within seconds, have our company restructure reflect our site structure by moving information technology over to its new location through the flick of a switch. And we'll show that in a demonstration coming up in a moment. And before we do that demo, some of the key things about hub sites and why they are useful and why they are a good way of working. So we have things like targeted search. I could be on a hub site for finance that has all of its connected sites, and I can have a search that targets just those. So I'm bringing back content. I get consistent navigation throughout the sites on my hub. So when I'm in that finance, or even on an intranet, for example, no matter what site I go to, I can have consistent navigation at the top that allows me to get back to where I came from or somewhere else within that hub, while also having navigation in the site itself, as we'll see. We have consistent branding. So when I associate a site with a hub, it will automatically inherit the branding theme so that the colors and everything else is matching and consistent. If I change a site's association to a different hub and that different hub has other branding, it will inherit that once we change it over. We also have a central write-up of things like news, so that we can have a home page and that pulls in news and other content just from my hub. We have efficient management of content and retention policies, so it helps to guide those policies and those compliance elements to a specific hub if needed. And as I've already said a few times, it makes it far easier to move things around to another hub if needed without needing a full-scale migration. So let's see how this works. I'm going to load up the admin center on my tenant here. So what we're going to do is we're going to see how we register a hub and then how we use it. Now, the first part of this does require that you are an admin. So we go into the SharePoint Admin Center and I come to Sites and Active Sites. And as an admin, I can register a site as a hub. Using this example, I've got Contoso. I select the site that I want to become the home or the hub home. I select hub and I register this as a hub site. I can then give it a name, and then the only other choice is who can associate sites with this hub. And what that means is if I put a name in here, for example, if I start typing Megan, once I've done that, only Megan can now associate sites with this hub, because you don't want that to be a free-for-all. You want to have a channel where things are managed and governed and kept clean, a point of responsibility. So by doing that, Megan is then able to associate sites with this hub and start to build out that structure for us. If I look at one that's already been registered, I can click and I can also edit this at any time and assign new people that are responsible. And it's as simple as that. So I've now got a hub site that's been registered. So from an end user perspective, let's see that in action. I'm logged in as Megan now. Megan comes over to the Contoso Works site. This is the hub site route, and you'll see we've got the navigation for the site itself, but we've got this hub site navigation up the top here as well, and this is consistent everywhere. If I create a new site as Megan, I'm going to call it Team Site, and I'll call it Project Z, for example. And I come through, I don't need to add any additional owners because this is just going to be a demonstration group. I finish, and we've now got Project Z. And I'm going to copy that address because I'll need it a bit later. But let's imagine we've built this all out and it's where we want it to be. I now need this associated to that hub because it's part of that same group of departments, divisions, functions, whatever you want to call it. All I need to do is click on the cog up here, go to Site Information, and then because Megan is able to associate it with Contoso Works because she's permitted to do so, she can select there and save. And if you watch what happens when I save this, you'll see that the theme will update so that the colors inherit. The navigation will also update. So now I've got this consistent nav at the top here, while keeping navigation for myself down the left-hand side in this site, allowing people to browse the content. And it's as simple as that. If I want to change this at any point, I can go to Site Information and we just give it a different site. It takes seconds to do, the branding will update, and everything will just work. Going forward, if we update that theme, it will update on every site associated with this. And it's as straightforward as that. It's really quick, it's really easy, and it's really effective to start bringing stuff together, grouping stuff through association rather than physical location. And now that we're in here, we need to start thinking about how we want to get around. So we've got our navigation, different elements here. So let's think about how we build our navigation model now that we understand our hub sites and we understand our sites. So with navigation, it's something that is always used, it's always seen as important, but it's very easy to get wrong. And you need to give some thought, planning and preparation to this. It can very easily, and I've seen this in so many cases when I've worked with new customers, when I go in and they show me what they have at the moment, and their navigation can be quite a mess because it's been perhaps unmanaged over the years. It can be cluttered or stale, it can have irrelevant or outdated links. I've seen cases before where people want it to look like it's heavily used and so they put loads of links in there, but you overcrowd it and then you lose the value by overcrowding it. You want to keep that navigation clean and simple and relevant. Make sure that those links don't go out of date and just keep it updated. And there are four main elements for navigation I'm going to show you here. One being hub navigation, the second being site navigation, before we go to targeted navigation, and then we take a look at the new SharePoint app bar, which is currently being rolled out globally. So let's go back in as Megan. If I bring this screen over here, I showed you before, we had the hub navigation up here. So this is visible everywhere. If I go back to the hub site route, you'll see I get this edit link. So you can only edit the hub site navigation at the root of the hub site itself. Site navigation is only visible on the site, and this allows us to get around there. So this shows us the house, and this shows us the map of the room that we're in. And both of them can be edited in the same way by those that are permitted to do so. So in here, I as Megan am allowed to change the navigation here. So all I have to do is click edit. And it's pretty straightforward to update. I want to add another link down here. So I want to start adding a link to my projects. I can click here and I paste in that address that I copied earlier from my new Project Z. And I say Project Z. And I say OK. If I save that, it will update, and you see we now have Project Z, and it will take us through. Very straightforward. What we can now do to start organizing it a bit more perhaps is we can add some headers in. So I'm going to go just above Project Z, and I'm going to choose label. Call it projects and say OK. And then I can take Project Z and make it a sublink so that it falls underneath that project's header. And when I save that down, you'll now see that we've just got projects, and I hover over, and this can start to contain all of those so that it keeps it grouped together logically. And as we build this out more, we can start then to make things work more naturally, guide people through, like an example here. This is an example intranet that I built, and in here we have the simple call to action, I want to. So that's clearly, this is the doing place. I want to do something. What do I want to do? I want to browse policies and procedures. I want to complete a fire inspection form, whatever it may be, all these key links. And it's fine if it is populated a lot, as long as this stuff is relevant to where we are and who we are. And how we can take this further with regards to who we are is using targeted navigation. And so let's say this project section, this isn't relevant to everybody. This is only relevant to certain people. And so I might want to use audience targeting. And audience targeting allows you to show and hide the links on your page, depending on who is viewing it. And I should emphasize at this point that audience targeting is not a method of security. It's a method of filtration. So the sites behind these links might be accessible to everybody. They just might not be relevant to everybody. And we want to keep our navigation clean. And what allows us to have more links in there is if we target them to those who are relevant. We have global links that are available to everybody, but this projects area, it could be the link that I want to hide, or it could be the whole section. So if I edit the project label, because down here, I've turned on audience targeting. Up here, I can then start typing a group of people that I want this to be shown to. And this looks to our AD groups that we have coming through. So I start typing Contoso. I have Contoso Life members, and I can add up to 10. I say OK, and then I save. So now Megan sees projects because she's a member of Contoso Life members. If I flip over to Alex, and I just copy that here, Alex comes in, and Alex doesn't see it because he's not a member of that group, and therefore it keeps the navigation clean and it keeps it relevant to the people that are looking. So this does therefore mean that you have a bit more management when it comes to your navigation, but it is well worth it. It's a very effective way of allowing more links, but helping guide people that bit better to take them to what's relevant to them, whether it's at that point in time or ongoing. And it's very easy to set up for those who need to do it. And the same applies for site navigation. So on the site navigation, I can click edit and I can do exactly the same. It works no differently. It's a consistent experience throughout. So we've seen our navigation through our site, things that are relevant within here. We've seen navigation through our hub as well. And we can perhaps have links up here that take you to different hubs. And while that will work, what you do run the risk of is if you end up with 5 or 6 hubs, you've then got 5 or 6 places to manage the navigation that takes people between those hubs to those links. And that's where the new SharePoint app bar comes into play. So this is very new, and this is currently rolling out globally across Microsoft 365 tenants. Some of you may already see it, some of you may not. But what this gives you is a bar that is visible all the time in SharePoint, no matter where you are. It gives you access to your recent files, so anything you've recently opened and worked on. It gives you access to your news as well, if you have an intranet and people post news on there or on other sites. It shows you here based on things that you follow. You have your recent sites, so you can jump back to them there. But the main thing I want to focus on here is global navigation. What this allows you to have is everywhere in SharePoint access to a single point of navigation that can take you anywhere. So I have this configured so that it points to this site. So the navigation that's on this site is the navigation I want for everybody, everywhere. And so at any point, no matter where they are, they can click on the Cielo Costa link up here and browse through all of these areas to jump to where they want. Now this can be very straightforward. It can just be that one link or that one area of links that take you through to the different hubs, however you want it to be, but keep it clean and keep it accessible and keep it relevant. And I'm really glad they've introduced this because it's been a missing point, I think, for a long time, and it takes away the need to manage multiple areas for your navigation. So we have our sites, we have our hubs, we have our navigation. Now we need to start thinking about getting stuff into our sites, the documents that are going to go into our sites and how they're going to be managed. And this is what then takes us onto the principle of content types. Now, excuse me, content types have been around for a very long time, and they are very, very useful. And everything in SharePoint is a content type, no matter what it is. Whether you're just putting an item in a list or whether you're uploading a document, it's always bound to a content type, even if it's a system-based one that you never really see or think about. But you can expand these out and start to use them for yourselves. But what are they? They bring definition to your content. They allow you to classify and gather information about any content that you're adding. They allow for organized distribution of content capabilities. So you can push these out to different areas, have people working consistently with consistent templates for their documents and consistent metadata, capturing properties against the things that people are using everywhere. They make the process of assigning retention schedules and other compliance elements easier. So we can have a retention schedule across all of our sites against a particular type of content, so that it's, let's say, automatically archived after 5 years and permanently deleted after 7, depending on the type of content that it is, but also on the properties associated with it. And they can be managed on a site-by-site basis, or they can be managed centrally and pushed out to all those sites. And in this demonstration, I'm going to focus on it's a relatively new element for managing content types, and that's the content type gallery. So if I come back into the SharePoint Admin Center here, and I click on Content Services, and then I show Content Type Gallery. And this is where all of your central company content types exist. You can create standalone ones, like I mentioned, in sites that are just used there. But if you want something that's going to be pushed out to multiple places, so you don't have to manage it in different areas, you can create it here and have it pushed out to those sites. And in this list, if I filter, I have a group for our company content types, the Contoso content types. And you'll see here, these are the key types of content that people will be uploading. So if I upload a document to a site, or I create a document in a site, it wants to know what it is. So is it a policy, a presentation, a proposal? For different types of content, we want to capture different types of information. And when I create a content type, I can give it a name, I can describe what it is, I can associate it with a group so that it's organized as well. And then when that's done, if I come in here to Contoso Proposal, for example, we can add columns to it. And columns are displayed as fields in the properties of that document, and they're displayed as columns when you're looking at the library so that you see the information. And you can add loads of different types of information here. We can add single line of text, we can put choice fields, we can have date fields, people pickers, calculated fields, whatever you want to be able to capture the information that you need against this type of content. And once we've defined that, we can update it going forward and push those changes out again. But one of the things that I find most useful is adding a template to it. So we don't always want people to create documents on their local hard drive and then save them down and upload them to our SharePoint site, because that duplicates content. And a phrase I've probably used more than any over the years is single source of truth. You don't want to have duplicate content, so you want people to go to SharePoint to create those files as well. And what you can do is, under Settings, Advanced Settings, apply a document template, so that when anyone creates a document based on this content type, it will load a template that you assign. And this has various benefits, the main one being, if you change that template in a year's time, you update it here, and that change will push out to everywhere that uses this content type automatically. You don't need to have to go through emails to tell people to download the latest one, or whatever process you have to upload it anywhere else. It's very straightforward. You can also manage under here where you've got policy settings. This is where you can manage things like retention and other elements, but that's a whole other conversation, but it's there. So let's see them in action. I come back over as Megan, and what I'm now going to do is jump into my Mark 8 project team. In this site, I have a pre-sales library. This library has the content type for the for the proposal, enabled on it. So you do have to manually assign content types to different libraries because they're not always relevant to every library. So you choose which content types are relevant to which library depending on how you've organized things. And now when I click New and I choose Contoso Proposal, that will load up a document template with everything in it that I need, and then I can just start working. I complete my document and I then close out, and my document's now there. And this is then when we start to think about, we've got the content there, what are we going to do with the tagging? And we now need to start thinking about, let's make sure these tags are correct, let's make sure they're relevant for the type of content people are going to be adding. And that's where we move into the realms of taxonomy and metadata. So taxonomy and metadata are, I suppose, the same thing to a certain degree, but I tend to differentiate between the two because taxonomy is a whole ballgame in itself, and that's what I'm going to focus on here. I showed in the excuse me, in the list of site columns that we can have simple mechanisms such as single line of text and choice and date, etc. But where we can start to take this further is with taxonomy. And taxonomy can be defined as the practice and science of classification. It takes what you would previously have in a long drop-down list and it structures it hierarchically. And a common way I use to explain this is if you look at Amazon, and almost any site you use, whether it's Amazon or if you go to buy a car, you'll see things tagged according to the make, the model, the engine type, the gearbox, whatever it might be. But with Amazon, if I was perhaps looking at a new espresso machine, that would have tags on it that go from home and kitchen, coffee, tea and espresso, coffee machines, espresso and cappuccino machines. And these are in a structure. They're not just in one big drop-down list. And that's the kind of thing we can build out, taking things and making them organized and building a relationship as well, because coffee machines will show, if I say, show me everything under home and kitchen, but I can then also just look at coffee machines. It will show me coffee machines and espresso and cappuccino machines as well. So we have that backwards and forwards relationship of content, and it's all managed in one place, which is the term store. And bringing that back up over here, if I come out from the content type gallery in the SharePoint Admin Center to the term store, this is the single place where we can manage all of the terms that we use across our entire organization. We create it here, and then when we create a column in our content type or just in a list, we can point that column to one of these taxonomies. So this is where people get the values that they can choose from. You have your groups, so I've got company taxonomy here, and then I've got a couple of term sets, as they're called here. So these are sets of terms that are organized in a structure. So this term set, if memory serves, is about 500 items, but I've got it grouped. So we see 5 things at the top. I expand human resources. I expand compensation plans. I expand or select commission plans, whatever it may be, bonus compensation. And it means we've got that nice structure, that nice relationship. And we can add terms quite easily by clicking up here, add these terms in, choose what they are, save it, and then it's immediately available across every single site. We can also add different things such as synonyms on here. So commonly, I first started working with taxonomy properly probably about 15, 16 years ago. And what I immediately found is that it can turn into some quite animated discussions about how things should be termed, because people might use acronyms or they might have other ways of referencing something. So you can pick one term and then you can add synonyms to it. If in this example, to keep it simple, if I go to country and then I go Western Europe, as I scroll down, I've got United Kingdom. And then under United Kingdom, if I do rename term, you'll see we've got synonyms and it says UK. Because I've added a synonym of UK to this term, it means that when someone searches or looks for UK, it will bring back this term. So it means we can have the full and complete term officially there, but we can have anything else we want, so that if someone puts in an abbreviation, an acronym, whatever it might be, it will still bring it back. And this works in a simple term. It could be, we could be talking about weather, and we could have a twister that would return tornado, things like that. And when we use this on a site, in a content type, however it may be, if I go here and I select this document and I go to its properties, I've got my fields down here and I've got my required fields. I can click in country. Now I could, if I want to, click there and then browse through my taxonomy, which points to its central source. I select Western Europe and I scroll and I find United Kingdom. But there is an easier way, because one of the constant irritations I get using any form on the internet anywhere, being in the United Kingdom, is that I'll hit a drop down for my location and I know I'm way down the bottom because I'm United Kingdom and it's alphabetical. But I might scroll down and United Kingdom isn't there, because in this case they called it UK. And then I have to scroll back up and find it. What you can do instead is simply type. So I could just start typing unit. I get United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, or United States. But because I had that synonym in there, if I now remove that, I click in, oops, come back, there we go. If I just type UK, I get United Kingdom, because that's registered as a synonym to its master term. And that will bring back everything for me. And it's really easy. It is a lot of work to build these taxonomies, but it's well worth it to be able to classify your data properly. It works better from a reporting perspective, and it is a massive boost to end users as well for finding content, getting the kind of thing that they need, and also understanding at a glance what it is they're looking at in a library. And in some cases as well, it can remove the need for folder structures, because folder structures are prone to inconsistencies as well. I might have a structure here that has United Kingdom, and then underneath that it's got another folder called UK. Or it could be that in two different locations we've got those folders named inconsistently as well. Taxonomy brings that all together, but can remove the need for folder structures, because now if I'm in this library, I perhaps am only interested in seeing content that's United Kingdom. I click that and I filter and I choose United Kingdom. Or I want to browse everything. I click my column header and I group by country. This then shows me everything grouped by different countries. And I can build out my view how I, as the user, want it. I'm not forced to go down a folder path that is prescribed to me by somebody else who finds it intuitive because they know it and they've been working with it for years. This way we get freedom for the end users to browse and find their content in the way they want to. And some things to bear in mind when you're building out taxonomies. I mentioned before, it's not a 5-minute job. It can take quite some time. But some points to bear in mind. The first one, which I have laboured many times over the years. In a taxonomy, there is no such word as miscellaneous or other. If content belongs in your environment and you have a taxonomy placed against it, you're going to waste so much of your time because you've put either one of those values in there. Because it's natural when people are busy and they're in a rush, they'll see that and they'll just think, click. Or they might go in, there might be a term there that is exactly spot on for what it is they're applying, but they'll see that and they'll choose it first. And miscellaneous and other has no value at all to your content. So don't have it in there if you can possibly avoid it. I have seen some places what they do is they have a placeholder value in there. So people can select a placeholder value if a term doesn't exist. And then there are content managers or knowledge managers that keep monitoring documents that are tagged as that so that they can follow up with that user to say, okay, what is this? They will then get that added to the taxonomy and update the document so that we keep a clean and tidy house. Use full and descriptive terms for the master term that you're adding there. So use the full term avoiding abbreviations and acronyms in that top level where possible, but apply synonyms so that HR brings back human resources rather than HR being the primary term. People might think that everyone knows what this abbreviation means, but that might be because they've worked for the company for years. Someone new coming in shouldn't need to learn this. They should be able to go in and find and then learn as they go because they've already found what they were after. Avoid duplicate terms in multiple taxonomies. If you have the same word or the same thing, for example, a presentation, don't create it multiple times in different places. You can create a term once and then you can reuse that single term, because then it still keeps that relationship. A presentation is a presentation, and anything created anywhere that's then tagged to that term has a relationship. I want to see all presentations containing the word electronics. If I have a filtration process to filter all documents tagged like that, I'll see that relationship if we've reused the term, but I'll see duplication if I have not. So we've now discussed building our sites, we've discussed the navigation across those sites, the hub sites associated, the content going in and the tagging associated with them. So now from the end user benefit point of view, the next step is getting the best from search. And this is my favorite part because search is something that has always been a big thing to me. My past, going back some time, working in knowledge management, the thing I was first sold on with SharePoint back in 2007 was search and the power by which I could easily access, the speed at which I could access anything over hundreds of thousands of documents. And it blew my mind. And that stuck with me. It's something I've been consistently impressed with and still am with the advances that are coming. And I'm not going to do any slides for this part. I'm going to focus purely on a demo. But before I do that, the principle that I'm really getting at in the demo I'm about to show you is something that I believe in and have pushed a fair bit. And while it's very important that we do things like correct site structures, content management, navigation models, they're all critical and they are all something that should or must be in place. But from an end user perspective, it's important to remember the freedom to branch out and to use other things and to use search. And the example I have for this is I cannot remember a single time that I went to Amazon and I browsed through their departmental structure. If I was looking for a new espresso machine, when the last time I bought one was about 18 months ago, I didn't go to Amazon and then browse through Home and Kitchen and browse through my bits to get to where I want. When I go to Amazon, I go there and I search and I expect to find, understanding that I'll probably get recommendations along the way, things that will look at my search and say, oh, you might want this. This might help you. That's how I use technology in my personal life. So why can't I use it the same way in the working world as well? And you can. It's there. A lot of people just don't perhaps realize it as much. And people, I think, underuse search and the power that it has. And to demonstrate this, once again, I'm going to go back in as Megan. And I'm going to go to this home site here. And this is a two-part demo. Part one is the end user, and then part two is what we can configure to help them. And in this example, the first part I'm going to show you is Boolean searching. And this is something that you can do in SharePoint. It's something you can do in Bing, in Google, in DuckDuckGo, whatever search engine you use. You can use Boolean searching. And this is the practice of using different words and operators. And in this example, I'm going to search in SharePoint for proposal. That immediately brings back every document containing the word proposal, whether it's in the body or whether it's in the properties of that document. And for those that are unaware, with search, it's filtered according to what I can see. So I'll never see a search result, click it and get access denied. In search, you will always only see content you're permitted to access. But I've got my search. It's very vague and it's given me loads of stuff. So let's start breaking this out. I add electronics. That is now searching for proposal and electronics everywhere within a document, whether they're near each other or not. I scroll down. I see I've got this European expansion. For the purposes of this search, I'm not interested in anything European. So what I can do is say not European. That, because of that not operator, removes European. So I'm starting to build out my own advanced search here. But I'm also not interested in anything containing presentation. So now I can put in brackets or presentation. So in my brackets there, European or presentation, keeping it as its one statement. And there we go. So now I've managed to take what was a very large amount of results and filter them down into a pretty simple amount that I can then find exactly what I want and open it up and get to do what I want to do. I can also search if I want to find an exact phrase. Let's say someone gave me a printed copy of a document and there's nothing on there that tells me where that document was. I want to find it. I can pick a sentence in there and put it in quotes. So if I say Washington Executive Summary in quotes, it will find that exact phrase. And you'll see, I'm not sure if the screen share will show it as much, but it's emboldened as well so that it comes through in my results. Shows me that result, the one document that has that exact phrase, and it's taken me to it, and I found it in seconds. And it works great. There's another way of doing this as well, which is my preferred way. So the way I work every single day, and the primary tool I use is Bing. So if I go to bing.com, up here you can sign in as yourself, and you'll see down here that it's showing me my calendar, my recent files, and stuff about me. And using Bing, I can do exactly the same, but I think it's actually better. I search and I've got this work tab now. And here we go. You'll see all those results come back and it's all the same stuff. I can search for proposal electronics and I can do my Boolean searching, my operators, whatever it is I want to see. Oh, that one hasn't loaded, but there we go. And it works great. But where this takes us further is if I turn my search back to just proposal, we have these refiners down the left-hand side, and this allows us to target what it is we're looking for based on people, if that word comes up in their profile, groups, sites, individual files, but also conversations. So this will show me any conversation in Teams or in Yammer that contains the word proposal. And it's just there out of the box. And it's really just easy. And this is the method I use to find anything. Half of the stuff that I get, I have no idea where it is. I just go in here, I search, and I expect to find, and I expect to be guided and helped through that as well, with other things recommended. And that's where we can then start to really take this further to guide people through using the Search and Intelligence Center. And if I go back in the Admin Center here, I go to Search and Intelligence. The first page here won't be populated because I'm on a demo tenant, but this shows us insights about what people are searching for. And obviously I've got to be an admin to get here, but this allows me to see what people are searching for and how frequently people are searching. I can see the most searched queries in my tenants. I can see searches that have come back with no results. So if I pick up on that, that gives me something to work with because, right, people want this stuff. It's not there. Let's get it there. And then we can push it however we wish from there. Abandoned queries, equally as important. People searched, but they didn't click on anything to get to that content afterwards. They maybe got their results, it wasn't relevant, they gave up. We can start to think about how we can get more content in or get it right so that people find it. But the main focus I want here is under this Answers tab. And there are 3 areas in here I want to focus on. The first one is a pretty simple one, it's acronyms. This is kind of like a jargon buster. With some of our clients, particularly in healthcare, I've seen, there is understandably a lot of jargon. So there's internal terms that are used, or they might be industry specific terms that are used. And people have different spreadsheets in different locations that contain it, for example. With here, you can centrally manage that. And in this example, I've added OOTB, which means out of the box. That's its description. I can add the source of that if it's an official source that describes what this is, and build out this jargon buster so that when people search for whatever that means, they'll get that result come back in their search results prompted at the top. Where it gets really good is when we start with bookmarks. And bookmarks are like promoted results that you see in Google or Bing. And so with this, I've added a couple of examples here. We've got Contoso branding and Contoso IT help desk. When I add a bookmark in here, if I edit this one and show you, I've added a bookmark here for the Contoso branding. I've put the URL of the site, I've added a description, and I've added keywords. And what this means is that when anyone searches, if they search for Contoso branding, or they search for brand or brand guidelines, this promoted link will show up at the top, prompting them to come and visit the site. And it's really powerful what you can do with this, because I can choose so many things to customize this. So it might be that I only want this promoted link to be visible during certain dates. So after the 31st of the month, it will vanish. I can choose country or region. So if this is only relevant to people that are in our French office, for example, I can select France, and then only people in France will see it. And groups as well. This is a link that's relevant to our senior executive team. They're based around the world, but they all exist in a group. So I can specify a group that will only show up for them. Again, device and OS. I might be promoting something that's now available on iPhone. So I can say, well, this is relevant to people with iPhones or Android, or it's relevant to everybody. And then targeted variations allows us to take a combination of these and make it a bit more complex. Power App is one I'll show you in the next link for the Contoso IT Help Desk. So I've created a bookmark for the IT Help Desk, but that's running in a Power App, which is part of Microsoft 365. And I've put the ID of that app here so that it can launch it for them. And we'll see this in action in a minute. The last part before I show it is Q&A. So this is where we take common questions and then we can provide answers in the results. It works very similar to bookmarks. We can add these questions in and then we can put the answer in, add links to other locations and build it out however we want, using pretty much the same functionality as bookmarks so that we get these answers coming up. If I show you this now, I'll jump back over to Megan. I'm in Bing. So let's say it's Megan's first day. She's just joined and she's in the marketing team. She's received a couple of emails, and one of those emails, it referenced some functionality that was available in something, and it said it's just available OOTB. She thinks, what does that mean? She comes here, what does OOTB mean? And then that result will, oh, hold on, have I typed that correctly? There we are, sorry, refreshed. So we see here, it means out of the box. And this is the answer that I gave in the admin center, showing it refers to the functionality that comes standard. Okay, good stuff. So now I'm comfortable, I know what I'm doing. So it's my first day and I'm not entirely up to speed on what the benefits are here. I wonder what they are. So let me just ask the question, what benefits? And I start typing, see immediately, it preempts my answer, my question, because this exists as a question in our admin center. I select it, it will come up with our results. There's our box at the top. What benefits do we get? Come and have a look at the benefits page to get the full picture, or head to the Ask HR group on Yammer, where we'll be happy to help. So I can now get help not only to where the benefits are, but where I can go if I've got a question about those, going into Yammer, seeing questions others have asked as well, that may mean I don't need to ask it. So that's all good. So I've got that and I'm happy to go. So I know this afternoon I've got some design work I need to do as my first project within Contoso. And before I do that, I need some key information. That key bit of information is, what are our brand guidelines? So I can say, let's just say search for brand guidelines. And straight away I get Contoso branding. So I think excellent. I'm going to open that in another tab so that it's there for later. There's that information, happy days. And I think, right, so I've got the branding. I know the stuff I needed to ask this morning, that's all good. But the problem I've now got is I need to install Photoshop because Photoshop is my tool of choice for the work I'm going to be doing, but I don't have it. So I need to maybe ask IT. So I've not spoken to anyone in the service desk yet, but let me see if I can find them. I type service, you'll see I get Contoso IT help desk back. And that's because service and service desk are listed as keywords against that bookmark. And my result straight away shows up, Contoso IT help desk, excellent. So right, let's click and open. I've got a software question. I want Photoshop and please can I have it? I submit. Thanks, Megan. Your request has been submitted. Your unique reference number is, and you've been emailed a copy of this. Fantastic. So I just close. So without leaving search at all, I've just been able to understand what benefits we get. I've been able to get the information about our brand guidelines. I've been able to find any content I need using Boolean searching, and I've been able to launch the IT service desk and ask for something that I need without even leaving search. So I've gone through everything I needed this morning. I'm now just waiting on IT to come back to me so that I can get this license applied. And given the time, I'm getting pretty hungry. So let's type hungry. What's there? Okay, what's on today's menu? I click, I load, and there's today's menu in the office canteen. It looks pretty good today. I'm happy to have joined a company that serves food like this. And away we go. So it's time for lunch. In summary of everything we've just been through in the last 45 minutes, we began by talking about our sites. We had our sites, we defined the hub, and we defined the association with those hub sites, not the physical location. We defined a clean navigation model for the hub sites, for the sites, and for the SharePoint app bar, allowing that true global navigation. We defined the content that's going to go into those sites and the way that we need to manage it as well. We built out taxonomies to better manage it. So we have a clear document classification, allowing people that flexibility to browse documents more, have those classifications for the wider benefits that even help search. And we empowered users with that search, allowing them to use the out-of-the-box native capabilities of Boolean and everything else associated, while also making sure that we keep an eye on things behind the scenes to help promote key areas that are popular, promote the different things that are relevant to us based on our location or who we are, and make sure that people get what they want and they're guided along the way while having the freedom to work in the way that they want. If they want to browse with navigation, they can. If they want to use the power of search, they can. There's no one prescribed formula. And where Microsoft 365 really does have its benefits with everything across information architecture and as a whole is versatility, allowing people to do it as they want. So before I move on to the Q&A and we close things out, if you have a business challenge that you'd like to talk to us about, we would very much like to hear from you and we'd love to talk through it and give you a free 30-minute consultation. So if you could maybe email on hello@clocosta.com, we'll pick that email up, we'll get in touch, and we'd love to meet you and love to have a chat about what it is you're going through and give you a free 30-minute chat talking through all of these points about how you can do better with what you're doing, answer any questions, and hopefully how we can then help you further. And so, closing out now, I'm going to, in my other screen, load up the Q&A and see what questions we have. Bear with me one moment while that loads. So I've got a couple of questions that are coming here to finish us out in the last 5 minutes. So the first question, does the search experience work on mobile? Simple answer, yes it does. Microsoft has made very sure that everything in the modern experience works on any device anywhere. So what I showed you there with the search can be done on a desktop, laptop, a tablet and a phone as well. And so we can use Bing in the browser, or you can install the SharePoint app itself as well. The next question was, can we have search refiners for managed metadata? So that's somebody that's in the know because they've used the proper term. So that's the taxonomies. Search refiners are something that did exist in the classic. But in modern, for reasons best known to Microsoft, it isn't there yet. I'm hoping it will come, but you can tailor the modern experience to give you those refiners. And by refiners, it means if I search for something, when the results come up, I can refine by the taxonomy on the left-hand side and filter it down based on proposal or pitch pack, whatever it may be. And there are custom methods you can use to apply those changes. And another question here, can we give different staff access to manage taxonomies? Yes, you can. With that, in the taxonomy term set itself, you can assign permissions in there so that different people are able to go in and make those changes. So that brings us to the end of the questions there. And unless we have any more coming in, which I'm not sure we do, I'd like to thank you very much for staying with me over the course of this last, 55 minutes. I hope you found it useful. I hope it's given you a good introduction. And like I said, we could talk for days on this stuff. What we're talking about here is the fundamentals, but I hope it's been something that can get you started and give you insight and give you some rhythm to getting going. If you'd like to get in touch, email us on hello@clocosta.com and we'd love to speak to you. Thanks very much, everyone. Goodbye.